Hello and welcome to Why Laos with David Peter. I'm your host, David Peter. You know, after living in Southeast Asia for a number of years now, 12 to be exact, I sometimes forget how far away I actually am from where I grew up. A lower middle class kid from Rhode Island moved 8,000 miles to the complete other side of the world. I am most definitely not in Providence anymore. But sometimes I forget where I actually am. I go about my everyday mundane life and work and don't stop to notice how strange and wonderful this place really is. And it's a shame. We live in a beautiful and complex world, and we can get so caught up in our own routines that we forget to stop and smell the roses, or fermented fish, as you'll hear about later. So I decided to make this podcast to try to explain to you what it's like to actually live here in Laos. I'm going to try to describe the sights, sounds, and smells, which are many and varied, from an expat's point of view of what it's really like to live and work here. But I won't be telling you everything myself. I'll have other expats to tell you their stories and experiences as well. So if you've ever wondered what it's like to live on the other side of the world, stay with me. One of the things you definitely have to get used to living in a faraway land is that nation's food. As your pretty average American, I used to eat Western fare for the most part. Sure, I grew up with a lot of Italian Americans, so I toss in some fried calamari or bacala here or there, nothing super exotic. But that said, I'm a pretty adventurous eater. If you put something in front of me, I'll most likely eat it, casting caution and intestinal fortitude to the wind. So caution aside, over the years here in Laos, I've eaten snake, bat, mouse, and I know I'll get some backlash for this one, even dog, and a variety of unidentifiable meats and sundries that I'm quite happy not exactly knowing what they once were. One of the most common foods in Laos is something I actually like when done right, but can be a bit of a divisive issue. What is it? Well, it has no exact English equivalent. So I've enlisted the help of some local expats to describe it for you.
It's pungent, smelly, and you need to keep at least 15 meters away from it in the market.
It's good when cooked on barbecue duck and barbecue chicken.
I hate it.
Not a day goes by without it.
I can't even say the name. It comes from deep, deep, deep below the brimstone, the heat, the never-ending torture.
This oft vilified but also locally celebrated foodstuff is known as padaek. If you're curious and strong of stomach, feel free to hit pause and Google it to see it in all its unidentifiable shades of greenish-brown, lumpy, fermented, fishy glory. The most common English spelling of it is Padaek. Check it out. Here's Wikipedia's take on explaining it. Padaek is a traditional Lao condiment made from pickled or fermented fish that has been cured. It is thicker and more seasoned than the fish sauce more commonly seen throughout Thailand and Vietnam, often containing chunks of fish. The fermentation takes a long time, giving padaek an aroma similar to cheeses like eboise. Now, I know what you're thinking. Yum. But believe it or not, it actually has a relatively mellow flavor, despite its ridiculously intense smell, and does enhance a lot of the local foods here. They love to dump ladles of this stuff on many of the local dishes. One of the common expressions is, if it doesn't have padaek, it ain't tasty. This special sauce is the end result of combining raw freshwater fish, sticky rice, salt, and each individual chef's secret additions and letting this stew ferment in large clay pots for anywhere from 6 months to a fine wine's lifetime of 25 years. Any premises preparing this are usually called out by the nose long before the eyes. Padaek probably started being used as a way to preserve fish many years ago, and they thought, wow, this is pretty good. Why don't we use this as a condiment on our food? Padaek, lap, and papaya salad are just some of the many strange and delicious and unique kinds of foods you can get here in Laos. And on that subject, we're going to hear from one of the producers of this show, Tanya, who also is an expat living here in Laos. She's got tons of interesting stories about the local food scene here. So, Tanya, how long have you been in Laos?
Let's say more than a handful of years.
Okay, for a number of years. And what's your personal take on padaek?
I think smell-wise, it's the Lao equivalent of a French cheese shop. It's not something you want to spend any time around, but it does add a certain depth of flavor to a lot of Lao foods that's hard to replace.
So would you consider yourself an adventurous eater?
I'm not looking to introduce another coronavirus by eating bushmeat, if that's what you're asking. I've done fried crickets with garlic and lime leaves. That was actually pretty good.
Fried crickets are kind of like potato chips, right?
Yeah, sort of. Potato chips with legs that get stuck in your teeth. I guess my most memorable meal was presented to me by an old student who wanted to treat me to a Lao specialty, red ant eggs.
Right. Ants and their eggs are commonly eaten here by the locals, especially in the countryside. They're even described as either sour ants or sweet ants, depending on their variety, and could be used as a substitute for lemons when you're out. They're known to be high in protein, and besides being sour, they also pop in your mouth when you eat them. Lao people like to eat ant eggs in soups, omelets, and salads.
Right. So this student wanted to treat me, but called me on the phone right before lunchtime to say she had a really great present for me, but wanted to make sure I'd eat it and not waste it because it's actually quite expensive. So I was kind of put on the spot, and I figured, well, you only live once. It looked like scrambled eggs, like chicken eggs, with ant eggs in the mix. And by eggs, I mean tiny little white, soft, leathery eggs, and half-grown larvae, and full-grown ants that had faces to judge me with. Basically the whole family tree.
And how did it taste?
Honestly, I poured so much hot sauce and lime juice on there to distract me from those faces and crunchy bits, I didn't taste a whole lot. But I did chow that down faster than I think any other meal I've ever had. And I sent a proof positive photo of my clean plate to my student.
Oh, she didn't eat with you?
No, she just delivered it and took off.
Okay, and the verdict?
Well, I started preparing for work to try and compose my mind and stomach, which kept half expecting the ants to reanimate and emerge from somewheres, when I started feeling a little bit nauseous and hot, and then I went to the bathroom and found out I'd started breaking out in hives on my neck. But I'd never experienced anything like that before. My throat started getting tight and hard to breathe and really hot. So, long story short, I called a local clinic that told me to get immediately down to the main hospital's emergency room. That was some of the most reckless motorbike driving I'm proud to have walked away from. They asked me what I was there for. They were like, oh, red ant eggs, yeah, some people are really allergic to those.
Okay, that's good to know. So was that the end of your adventurously eating local cuisine?
Street cred as a foreigner here comes mostly by what you're willing to eat. But I've taken ants off the menu.
So, I hope you've learned a little bit about the local food in the exciting and wonderful country of Laos. As Tanya had mentioned earlier about street cred, being willing to eat their food will go a long way with the locals. It's a small, somewhat isolated country in the world, and when they see expats eating and enjoying their food, it makes them proud. It will help to make lasting friendships with these lovely people, especially if you're daring enough to eat the daunting padaek. Thank you for listening to Why Laos. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, please subscribe to make sure you get new episodes as soon as they come out wherever you get podcasts. More episodes are coming, so stay tuned. Why Laos was created written, edited, and produced by me, David Peter. All music was composed by me, David Peter. There was also additional production and writing edits by Tanya Felix.